Welcome to Business Leader Breakthroughs, where we help unlock the potential in you, your teams, and your business. I'm your host, Ryan Castle, along with Dr. Mike Ashby. We'll share insights, experiences, and stories on achieving breakthrough success in business and life. To learn more, click the link in the episode show notes or go to thebreakthrough.co. Now let the breakthroughs begin. Welcome along to another episode of the podcast. Today we're talking about better decisions, but should we start with when did you make a bad decision? Any life experiences you've, this could be a long episode.
Yeah. Should we start with yesterday and work backwards?
We could do. Hey, I made a bad decision once. I was in a bit of a multi-sport phase and I decided that joining an event to paddle across Lake Taupo would be a good option. And it was the worst event I've ever done. There was only about, 20 people silly enough to do it within about 20, I think it was like 60 kilometers or something. Paddle by the time sort of like 20 minutes had gone past, everyone had spread out so much that you couldn't see anyone. And you were so far from shore that you couldn't actually feel like you were making any progress. So it was like being on a treadmill for about 5 hours, like a paddling treadmill for about 5 hours. And then it had a nice side wind, side chop. Normally when I finish an event, I'm so happy with myself and proud of the effort and like super stoked. I was just 100% grumpy. So I don't think entering that event, maybe I hadn't thought through what might actually look like, but I feel like I could have made a better decision in that one, like not go in it.
I think the important part of that is, what did you learn from your bad decision, if anything? But given your addiction to multi-sport, I suspect you didn't learn a lot. You still went and took on stupid challenges.
Yeah, here's one of my insights, and as you know very well, I'm an extrovert. I love being around people. Yep. So, really a key learning from that event was boost up where there'll be some other people around. Like I'm terrible at hanging out myself for like 5 hours at a time. It's like, yeah, that won't work.
Yeah, I think I probably would have been in the group that within 20 minutes made the decision just to head back to the shore. Oh, no, I'd have been in the other group that just decided, no way. Even my kayak has a little engine on it, a little egg beater engine. It's just marvelous. I live in a place where the tide is very strong, 5 or 6 knots. And if you want to get anywhere, you need a little engine.
That little engine, is it helping you catch a lot more fish?
Haven't got to that yet. That's the next stage, is kind of take a rod with me.
Alrighty. Let's dive into better decisions in a work context. We know that a really fundamental part of any manager or leader's job is evaluating what's in front of them and making good decisions. How should people think about when they're presented with a decision? How should they think about framing it so they get a good decision made?
Thinking about things in terms of probabilities. How likely is this to happen? And that's both from a problem-solving perspective and a decision-making perspective. And I did find that when we were preparing this stuff, it was kind of difficult to sort out between problem-solving and decision-making because they're part of the same thing most often. So the probabilities piece is questions like, how often does this happen? How likely, which means how likely is this to happen again? We had a conversation just in the meeting we were in this morning about resource levels. Did we need to address those? And actually the conclusion was, well, no, because what we've got here is a particular set of circumstances which aren't going to repeat. So this is not a problem to solve. So on the kind of problem analysis point of view, thinking about the probabilities of how often this might arise and the probabilities that it will do significant damage or have significant effect is the next part of that. And then you launch into the probabilities of success, because as you found on the lake, in fact, if you'd thought about the probability of you having fun, well, that was quite low. If you even thought about the probability of finishing, well, you probably beat the odds, because there was how many other people finished?
I actually don't know, Mike. I think in the majority of the field, most of the people that turn up to paddle across Lake Taupo are not first timers. They've put some training in and they kind of know what they're in for. So their likelihood of completing is very high. Likelihood of enjoyment, maybe slightly lower, particularly if you're kind of wired like I am.
Yeah. So thinking about the probabilities like that, because nothing's guaranteed. Nothing, Only death and taxes, as they say. They're the only things that we can be certain of. So I think it's really good practice to think about the probabilities of success. And you and I, we've done a lot of business plans, haven't we?
Yeah, both our own and for other people.
And attaching probabilities to those would have been quite instructive, wouldn't it? It probably plays also to rule number one, which is to be less certain about everything. And it's probably part of the same thing. You just, there's an old saying, you'll get what you want, but not in the way you thought you would, which I think is a lovely piece of advice. You go down a certain path with a decision and you have an expectation that you'll get that outcome. You just need to be less certain that it's going to work out that way. You just need to be less certain of yourself and your competence and your facts. One of the things about great leaders is that they have humility, that they have room for doubt about themselves, that they're not, these swaggering, overconfident, kind of drum majors who are leading the parade. They are people who agonize about some things, that they are not sure that they've got this right. They're not sure about their facts and they look for more facts. So it's kind of, that's a good thing to do, is to be less certain, be less confident in the outcome.
When we think about those three rules, be less certain, evaluate how often does this happen, which is, I think, an important one. And coming back to the context you laid out of our previous meeting today, that was exactly the question we asked around the resourcing was, is this a pattern that's going to continue forever? No, it's not. We just happen to have a couple of team members that are unavailable to that particular part of the business right now. It's not going to be an ongoing thing. So actually, we don't need to spend too much time trying to evaluating or solving this. So how often does it happen? And then think in probabilities. If we were to apply those three rules to the first sailing of the Titanic, would that have been a helpful framework?
Rule one, unsinkable. You
Uh-huh.
don't get more certain than that, do you? No. Rule two, how often does this happen? Reasonably regularly, icebergs in the North Sea around that time. Rule three, think in probabilities. Well, you'd probably say you probably still would have sailed, even if you'd said if it was a big iceberg and we did hit it, blah, blah. But you definitely, if you thought there's a 20% chance that we might hit an iceberg in the middle of the night, you'd probably think, better make sure we've got, good safety procedures and that they get the band out first because, they're the most important people on the ship. But it happens time and time again, doesn't it, with loss of life that, in hindsight, overconfident, underappreciating the risks and not taking measures for the possibility that this might happen.
And yet also on the flip side, thinking in probabilities, you would say if you were concerned that it happened 100% of the time, you'd never sail.
Yeah.
So life's not like that. You can't stay in port your whole life and hope for a different outcome. You do have to get out and sail, but evaluating where things are at and maybe checking that you had enough lifeboats for everyone on the ship might have been a useful thing to do in advance. As an example. Yeah.
Yeah, good
Okay.
example.
So they're very good rules. We have some core principles ourselves when we're helping managers and leaders learn about making better decisions. Our first one is fit for purpose. What does that mean?
That is this guides us, you and I, and it guides our team, and it guides how we coach people and all of those things. And it starts with fit for purpose. There's a great book called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. It was written in the 70s, and it was a very cool book. And it was this kind of reflection. It was a very hip thing in those days. And it was this trying to understand the nature of quality and what in a very hippie meditative way. And what it came out was that quality isn't either really good or really bad. It's what's fit for purpose. So, we use the example of, even a cheap, nasty four-wheel drive is going to do a better job off-road than a beautiful, sleek, Mercedes sedan, because one's fit for purpose and one's not. So understanding what typically happens to people is I think they overproduce, they overservice, they overspec, they overthink. They could save a whole lot of time by going, what's fit for purpose here? What's good enough? and understanding the difference between there are some things where you can be good enough and fit for purpose, and that might not be very much. It might be gaffer tape. Lots of things on stages for bands work with gaffer tape, but there are other things that you simply cannot compromise at all, and only 100% will do. And that's precision engineering, that's safety related stuff, that's customer related stuff. Only 100% will do. That's what fit for purpose looks like. So it's not saying that there's some kind of concession or discount on quality. It's simply saying know when you have to be 100% on everything, and know when 80% will be enough. So I think it's a great kind of lead principle. What's fit for purpose?
I love that one. And our next one is who can help, and it's such a powerful question. Because I
Yeah.
think we tend to maybe some of us overestimate how much we know and our ability to make that decision for ourselves. And as we've been running a water theme on this about kayaking across lakes and the Titanic,
Hmm.
it made me think about a podcast I actually listened to a couple of weeks ago, the Between Two Bears podcast, and they had Sean Quincey who rode 2,200 kilometers across the Tasman. Incredible. Makes my whinging about 5 hours seem somewhat minuscule.
Yeah.
And he was saying that one of the key factors in his success was he brought an expert onto his team whose nickname is Clouds. He's worked with the most of the New Zealand sailing team, America's Cup, etc., and he's a weather expert.
Right.
And as much as Sean could do all his physical preparation for rowing across the Tasman, actually having someone who understood how to read weather patterns and tell him to row northeast, southwest, go backwards for a while, because if you go backwards for a while, actually you'll stay out of the eye of this next
Mm,
coming storm and you'll do better. And it was just such a great example of him going, hey, I'm not the weather expert. I'm about to try and row across, a couple of thousand kilometers of ocean. Who could help me? And Clouds was a good example of that.
yeah, yeah, that's such a great example, and it's just something that we should ask a lot sooner in the process, because we could save ourselves an awful lot of time and trouble, couldn't we? And these days, and you're really good at it. This is, I tend to kind of puzzle away at something before I think, oh, maybe there's somebody who knows more about this. Whereas you quite quickly go to, okay, who can we talk to about this? Must be your extrovert character. And of course, nowadays we have our friend chat, which
Yes.
should be not just who can help, but what can help. Oh my, can chat help? Can AI help us? If we know, when we learn how to prompt it. I think there's another part to it as well, in business in particular. So there's the who can help solve this decision right now, and then there's the who can help you advance as a manager or as a leader, who can help your business, which is why we have an advisory board, and we've got some people on there who just leave us for dead with their experience and their specialist, their specialist expertise. You've often said this, you just don't want to be the smartest guy in the room. You really want to have a room full of people who know much more than you, so that you can soak it all up and apply what they know. That's real leverage, isn't it?
It is, and it's the wood for the trees analogy. Sometimes we're so close to what we're doing, it's very hard for us to see the big picture. Whereas a advisor who can take more of a external view and bring their shared experiences from other locations and then apply it to your business, super powerful. So yeah, that they are a huge contributor to our decision making when it comes to strategy and direction for our business.
Yeah, and I think there's probably, thinking about some of the interactions we've had with our board, they haven't always been comfortable, have they?
Hell no.
Sometimes, hell no. And so maybe another principle in this decision making is something like take no for an answer, or find the coach and the critic, or something like that, which is about, don't just get help from people who are going to affirm you, get help from people who are going to challenge you. And if they agree with you, you'll know you're on the right track. And if they don't agree with you, you've got something to think about. So let's add a principle there to, find a good critic.
And I think on
Mm.
that basis, we've come to understand that it's much more powerful to ask that person you're seeking help from to go, here's the thing I'm evaluating, trying to solve, make a decision about. and then stop
Mm.
talking. I think what
Mhm.
we learned is we were often, here's what we're trying to solve, and here's the way we want to solve it. Is that okay? And you just miss
Yeah,
out on all that great information because again, it's just easy for them to kind of go, oh yeah, I affirm what you're thinking. So
yeah,
present the problem and then stop talking and let them say how they would tackle it. There's much more
yeah.
power. Even if you've already given a lot of thought to how you think you would solve it, have their insight first before you tell them how you're going to go about it. I think it's been powerful too.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, it's kind of an extension of who can help and make sure you help them help you. And it certainly doesn't help to kind of, yeah, here's our plan. Yeah, we did learn that, didn't we?
Good, good. And it's been a good learning. And look, our fourth principle is what could go wrong. And I'm absolutely terrible at this, eternal optimistic. I'm like, no, everything will work out fine. We don't need to worry about the potential risks or downside. And that's something
Yeah.
I need to get better at. Give us some more
Yeah.
context around the what could go wrong.
Oh, well, it actually came from my experience years ago with an implementation of a massive back office system. And one of the consultants was a very good friend of mine who came in to do the post wreckage review. He said, nobody seemed to ask the question, what could go wrong? And you should always ask that question because it's the same thing about being less certain and thinking of probabilities. Just going through the what if this doesn't happen? What if this decision doesn't pan out the way? What will we do? How long will we give it before we pull it back? Can we pull it back? Is it, and we talk in our decision making stuff about the reversible and consequential, how to approach the differences, So if things are reversible, you don't even have to be involved in them. They are things that your team can make decisions on to grow. And if you can reverse them, that's cool. If you've got consequential and reversible, then you take the decision, but you're still going to be able to kind of pull it back. It's the consequential big decisions and irreversible. And that's where you want to put all your time and energy, and including asking that question, what could possibly go wrong? No, that's the old one. What could possibly go wrong means nothing's good. Things could go wrong, and I'm just not going to look at them. What could go wrong is a more detailed analysis of it. I think the other one that kind of fits with that is compared to what, which I use so often. I was, as you know, I've been engaged in a wee community campaign about some people who want to build a boat ramp in our beautiful waterfront. And they've got a boat ramp. And the one thing that in all of the arguments and how much better this would be, actually putting a straight out comparison between what they've got now and what they would have if they built this thing and how it's better in comparison. That piece has never been done. It's never been done to say, this is the improvement, partly because if you look at it, it's probably, one of the key things will be it's going to save 5 minutes on the water, which is not enough. But anytime that we are, kind of going for a particular decision and saying this is good, it's not good on its own. It's better than something else. So what is the alternative and how is this better? I think compared to what is anytime anybody comes up with, I've got the answer, here it is. It's this good compared to what? And most often it's kind of compared to the status quo. How is this an improvement over the status quo?
And is it
So
worth the effort around the change of moving beyond status quo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you're into sort of cost, an informal cost benefit effectively, where you're going, well, compared to the old ramp, it's going to cost this because the ramp's not going to, the old one's not going to cost anything. So all of this is cost. And, there's the safety, take the safety risk. It's not that the old one is completely safe. There is some safety risk. How much more risk is there with the new one? That's what we want to look at. It's at the margin. Because if they're both equally safe, well, then, why would you shift? You'd only shift if it was, this is going to be so much safer than what they've got now. My rant.
Right, done. It's probably time we wrap this episode up so that I can go and hang out with some people and you can go fishing.
And I can go fishing and I can get off my high horse.
Sounds like a delicate transition from high horse to kayak. Hey, Mike, thanks. Good insights. That was a little episode on better decisions, and we will add some elements to the podcast show notes. So if you want to pick up those key pointers on how you can make better decisions, you can pick those up there. Thanks for joining, Mike. Catch you on the next one.
Thanks, Ryan. See you, mate.